At the beginning of the introspection depicted in Chapter 1, when I leaned back in my chair after repeatedly hearing the word truth, and after getting all the thoughts about how fear gets people to lie, I turned to myself and wondered, am I true? Am I true to myself? Then, I got enraptured in my past life. I dove into the sweet moments and the bitter times. I revisited my childhood and my shame about some of its aspects. I remembered my struggles to fit in and get my share of life. I got in front of my fear of being alone and the relationships where I tried to find some comfort, but that did not work. I revisited all my life, from childhood to where I was. I also noticed the moment when I turned my back on myself and fought for who I wanted to be instead of holding on to who I was first. Then, tears filled my eyes, and I started to cry. I realized I had not been true to myself for so many years. While fighting against life and trying not to be left alone, I renounced myself. I saw how I had forsaken this, who I am. I saw that little boy I was trying to hide. In my attempt to not be alone, I had walked away from him, leaving him in the rice culture. I saw he had been lonely without me for so many years. I saw him plowing with his clothes covered with mud, and I saw him chasing the birds all day long. I had left him there and escaped to run after things that did not match who we were. He was looking at me, and he was so sad. My heart broke, and I regretted leaving him like that for all these years. I ran to him, and I hugged him so dearly. I told him I was sorry. I showered him with love and reunited with him. Despite all the comments about him and how he was, I carried him with me. All the comments that made him feel abnormal and desiring to become normal, like the others, I heard them again. But this time, I said, it's okay. That's who I am. I embraced this boy and decided never to leave him again. I also saw this young man lost and going through all kinds of struggles, and with a smile, I told him, it's fine. You did what you had to do. Then, I forgave those who intentionally or unintentionally hurt me, and I forgave myself for those I had hurt and what I did wrong. I forgave myself for all that I had been regretting for years. After this good cry, I felt an indescribable peace deep inside me. Then, I decided I would never separate from this, who I am, anymore. However, this decision came with consequences. A job is the manifestation of an agreement between two parties, the recruiter and the candidate, who respectively become the employer and the employee after the acceptance of an offer from one party by the other. Therefore, even if the recruiter, most of the time, is in a position of strength and comes with his set of criteria, it is natural that, like the recruiter, the candidate gets his own set of criteria about what job he wants and dares to decline offers that do not meet them. That's how prosperous and sustainable professional relationships between employers and employees can be built. Indeed, an employee whose standards are unmet will potentially be looking around for an opportunity that is a better match. And an employer who does not consider his employees' standards might face a high turnover rate. After working in 10 different places, I wanted to avoid switching employers again. Sometimes, I had chosen to leave. Other times, circumstances were not in my favor, and I often made mistakes. But this time, I did not want to work for a paycheck anymore. My next job had to be my last one. Therefore, even though I decided to let life take its course, I still outlined the features of my next job. I defined the types of tasks I would accept and the characteristics of companies I would accept offers from. I also determined other features, including minimum benefits, vacation time, and my minimum acceptable pay rate. Then, I decided I would not accept or apply for any offer that did not fall into or exceed those criteria, a decision I could luckily afford. When the introspection began, my two immediate decisions were difficult. But that's what the something inside of me instructed me. Life is not an easy path, and decisions must be made carefully. However, my definition of careful decisions was no longer the same. When making those difficult decisions, this time, I felt aligned with the something I often failed to listen to. My decision was made about what type of job I would accept if I had to sign an offer again. I was so determined that, during this period, I kindly declined more than 20 job opportunities that did not fit my criteria. I politely thanked the recruiters for their interest in my profile and continued not stressing about getting a job. Yet, life often strangely seems to provide me with what I want when I do not cling and stop caring about having it. As I said earlier, life often seems to tease me. While focused on my new business adventure, I received a message from a recruiter about an interesting role. The offer was exciting and perfectly matched the standards I determined, with some of the features above my expectations. I did not hesitate to confirm my interest in joining the staff. I was scheduled for tests and interviews and succeeded in my application. It was great to get the role. I was doing exactly one of the kinds of work I like. The team seemed happy to have me, and I quickly developed a fantastic work relationship with my boss, who soon told me I exceeded his expectations. I felt fulfilled and accomplished. Things started going well for me again, and I continued establishing my business. I planned to keep it as a side occupation, like insurance, in case my employment situation changed. I was pleased in my new role, and this job meant a lot to me as it was related to my background and studies. I finally got a job that met my criteria and where I could stay for the rest of my career. I hoped to achieve the stability I sought without switching jobs again. However, I became concerned when we heard the university was planning to enforce a V+ policy. I wasn't sure I could conform to it, as my decision-making process had changed entirely, and I had experienced a profound interior transformation, the type of change that completely reshapes you forever. I had met and reconciled with myself. I had also made myself promises to no longer separate from it, to be true to myself and no longer make decisions based on fear. To listen to the voice of my conscience inside of me to make sure I was always at peace with it and didn't fall into remorse anymore. Before deciding whether to take the V+, I had to see what the something within would tell me, to listen to it and follow its directions. I shared my concern with my boss and explained that I had been through things that made me unsure I would comply if forced with the V. I explained I had experienced a deep introspection that completely changed my decision-making process. He answered, "Don't worry. I have worked here for many years, and the university does not tend to force its employees into personal decisions. I can guarantee that no one will force you to get A versus to keep your job. And, if that had to happen, you can be sure I will do everything I can so you don't get through such a condition."